3 previous horses before him. I learned to ride as a teenager in upstate New York at a hunter jumper barn. But my first horse I didn't get until I had my first job as a geologist in Denver, Colorado in 1985. I bought Misty, an Anglo-Arab mare, and I used her for eventing and dressage, but she was my first NATRAC horse. I started NATRAC with her in 1986 in Region 3. And she got her 1,000 miles in 1992, passed away a couple of years later. My second horse I got when I moved to Houston, and it was Miracle. She was an Arabian mare. Mostly I used her for dressage. She was a wonderful dressage horse, but I also did NATRAC with her as well. And she got her 1,000 miles in 2004. My third horse, Punky was a surprise. When I got Miracle, nobody knew this and nobody told me this, but she was pregnant. And so a few months after I bought Miracle, she had Punky in the shed in my backyard. I was there for her birth. I did all her imprint training. I did all her training. I'm the only person who ever rode her and taught her everything that she knows. And like with all my horses, I started her in dressage, but she hated the arena. She hated dressage. So I did mostly NATRAC with her. And she was a fantastic NATRAC horse. She got her Open National Championship in 2006. And then we moved on. We did a lot of endurance. And eventually I had to retire her in 2013 due to arthritis. So in 2014, 13, 14, I did not have a horse to ride. I had both mares in my pasture, unrideable from arthritis. They both are retired. And this was around the time that Wendy Gardner, who was a top trainer at Tuscara Arabians, who I knew through NATRAC and endurance, she contacted me about Kaiser. And she said, "You are just going to love him." Next slide. So Kaiser was born at Tuscara Arabians. That's the TA in his name, by the way. His daddy was Gillo. His mother was Katrina. They were both from the Polish line of Arabians. That's him as a baby in 2007. Now, when he was 3, Wendy Gardner was the one who broke him to ride, and she was his trainer. She trained him for the Arabian shows in hunter pleasure. Next slide. So here he is doing hunter pleasure in the main ring of the Arabian shows, you know, with the rock music blaring and you know how they go. This is what he was trained to do. He did 21 shows from 2010 to 2013 under 6 different riders. He had several different owners, people who leased him out, and finally in 2004 he wound up back with Wendy at Tuscara Arabians to be sold again. And that's when she told me about him, and she said, "You're just going to love him." And I said, "Well, why do I want something like that? Why do I want a show horse?" And she said, "Well, let me do this. I'm going to take him out on the trail. I'll call you back. I'll let you know how he does." She called me back right away. She said, "This is the best trail horse I have ever ridden." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." She just wants to sell a horse, you know. But I said, "Okay, I'll come out. I'll look at him." But she was right. He was very gentle. He was very sane, highly intelligent. Felt very safe on him. I couldn't find anything wrong with him, but I just emotionally was not ready to move on. You know, from Punky was my baby. Punky I raised as a baby, and I think it's very hard to replicate that kind of relationship with another horse, that you are there for their whole life. So there were very tough shoes to fill. But from a mental standpoint, I had to move on. You know, I knew that I just couldn't, you know, I had to move on. So I said, "Okay, I don't see anything wrong with him. I'm going to go ahead and buy him." So that's when I bought him. And so I actually, after I bought him, I got excited because this was the very first registered Arabian that I had. That meant I could go to the Arabian shows. I could work towards his Legion of Honor, his Supreme Legion of Honor, which, by the way, that's the plus and the slash in his name here on those. So let's go to the next slide. I started him in dressage to retrain him from the hunter pleasure frame into a dressage frame. Did a lot of dressage with him. I moved him up through the levels. He did pretty well. He competed in championship shows, Houston Dressage Society, the AHA Region 9, and he got some pretty decent scores and qualifying scores at recognized show to help me earn my USDF bronze medal. Next slide. Now, he struggled a little bit with the arena. He was kind of tense, and in dressage he would struggle with the relaxation, the submissiveness part. So it wasn't really his forte. So I started to try him in a bunch of other sports. And you can see at AHA he's doing the English trail that they have there. We tried a lot of other disciplines that they offer at AHA. But the arena, he would be a little tense and spooky. He liked the trail. So we tried a little local sport called Texas Trail Challenge. It's similar to the trail trials that you guys have here in California. It's short distance, and then they had obstacles set up, very creative, scary type obstacles like that. We also did endurance, and we still do. We do a lot of limited distance rides, and he loves that. But he is very slow. He's just got a very steady trot. He doesn't care what anybody else is doing around him. He just keeps that up. Now, he will turn on the gas if I ask him to. But he's got a pretty slow, steady trot. And when he gets to difficult footing, he's very, very careful. He thinks about where to put his feet. He watches where he goes. He's very, very safe, but he's very slow. So we were not winning endurance rides. We were, coming in maybe mid-pack. That was fine. But then I tried in 2016, AHA was having the distance nationals in Oklahoma that year. And they were offering a 2-day, 70-mile CTR. CTR for the distance nationals is judged like NATRAC, but they don't have obstacles. And he was the reserve champion. So I felt like this is where we need to go. This is his forte. So I decided to do NATRAC with him. Next slide. We started that in 2015. Some of his early rides, that's a ride in Louisiana we did, and on that particular ride, I think it was the second ride he ever did, it was that NATRAC judge that pointed out to me, the vet judge pointed out, he has a soundness issue in his hind end that I never saw, never knew. She saw it, told me about it. So I took him to Texas A&M to get an MRI done, and his hocks were in such bad shape. He had terrible arthritis in his hocks. It was so bad, he had bone edema, he had cartilage damage, but they felt like they could bring him back to soundness by doing joint injections, steroid joint injections, and taking him into light work. They were kind of skeptical whether he would be, quote, hardcore distance horse. And so I kept him in CP for 5 years, and he did great. He stayed sound, periodic joint injections in his hocks. And when they came out with national championships in CP, he won national championships in 2018 and 2019. And in 2019, that's when he won all his stuff. I don't even remember what some of that is. Some of it's from the region, a lot of it's national. He was first place in the nation, CP lightweight horse. He was the national grand champion, high average score, the high point Arabian, I don't even know what else. So we won everything. And I said, okay, what do I do with him now? So I said, look, I'm gonna go ahead and try open. 2020, we're gonna go into open, and we are gonna get an open national championship. Next slide. So we all know what happened in 2020. Okay, not a good year to have a goal. But we did do 8 rides, and he stayed sound the whole season. So I felt very good about that. I said, no, he can do open. Now, we didn't earn a national championship because we had so many rides canceling. We never got that out of state that we needed, you know, but 2020 doesn't count. Okay, let's just forget it. We're gonna move on. 2021, we are gonna get that national championship. Everything's gonna be back to normal, right? So we start off the right, no, it's not back to normal. There's still rides canceling. We had a lot of bad luck. We do 7 rides. We got our placings we needed, but we were just shy of the points we needed. And mostly because I couldn't do any of the fall rides. He wound up getting a bone chip in one of his front legs. He had to go through the rehabilitation, which we all heard about in the seminar this afternoon. So he went through 2 months of rehabilitation, which knocked out all the fall rides, so we just missed getting the national championship. But I said, okay, 2022, that is our goal. By God, we're going to get it. So what happened in 2022? Let's move on. Okay, so what did I do? I did 10 rides in 6 different states. Now, not all 10 of the rides counted, and I'll explain why. But where the star is, I don't know if you can tell where Houston is, that's the area where we live. So most of the rides we did were in Texas, and the other region 4 rides, we did a ride in Oklahoma, a ride in Louisiana, and then I did 3 out of region rides. I did 1 in Florida, 1 in Kansas, and 1 in New Mexico. Okay, so the very first ride, let's go to the next slide. The very first ride of the 2022 season was actually in December of 21 at the Jingle Bell Jaunt in Central Texas. Now, I had intended to ride Open on this ride. I had signed up for Open, but this was right after his 2 months of rehabilitation. And once I got there, I got cold feet. I said, you know what, it's one thing to be on eggshells with the rehabilitation, and it's another thing to just throw him back into Open. And on terrain like this in the hill country of Texas, this is stupid. I said, no, I'm not doing it. I dropped him into CP. I said, I'm just using it as a conditioning ride. And he was sound, he had a good ride. But of course it doesn't count towards your Open points at all. So it did not a good start to the ride here. So let's move on. The next ride, I felt more ready to put him back into Open, and I wanted to go to an easy ride. So I said, let's go to Florida. It's flat there, it's just sandy, it's gonna be an easy ride. So we went to the New Year's resolution ride in Florida. That was our first Open ride, and he was sound. I was happy with it, but we placed last in our class, so again, not a good start to the ride here. So let's move on. So the next ride was in Region 4. They started up their spring rides in March of that year at the 7IL. 7IL, very close to Houston. This is where we ride and we train all the time. We know these trails like the back of our hand, okay? But I have done this ride for decades, since it started. I have never placed well on this ride. I mean, you think I would have an advantage, but I don't. I never place well. So I go to this ride and I go, oh, I'm not placing well on this ride. But he had a super ride. He wound up getting the best score he has ever gotten, the best score I have ever had any horse get, 113 pluses. And this was a full class. He won any sweepstakes that ride. And I said, this never happens. First of all, I never win this ride. And then, you know, I couldn't believe it. I said, okay, good, because now we have the first place we need towards our national championship. Now I need an out of state. Turns out, next ride, go to the next, is out of state in Louisiana. I said, what are the chances we're gonna win that ride? Not gonna happen, right? Nah, it's not gonna be that lucky. But he has another good ride. Judge loved him. He wound up winning and sweepstakes again on this ride. And it was full. Another full ride, full points for that. So we have our 2 placings we need. We just need points. So we move on. Go to the next slide. Next slide is 2 weeks later, we go to Raising the Bar. This is a tough ride. It's got some canyons, kind of technical. but he did wonderful on this ride. Again, another full class, another win, another sweepstakes, 3 in a row. With a full class, he's gotten all these points. All we needed at this time was only 15 more points for a national championship, and it was only April.
I didn't understand that.
Do I need to explain? So, anyway, as it turns out, Region 4 wasn't having any more rides that spring. They weren't going to have any more rides until the fall. And I said, I'm not going to wait. Look what happened last year. I'm not waiting for that. Anything can happen. I said, no. He's on fire. I got to keep going. So I said, no, I got to go out of region. So there was a ride in New Mexico, Nan Ranch ride, that I had been wanting to go to this ride for years. And now I had a reason to go. Next slide. So look at it. It is beautiful ranch, a Spanish-style ranch house, out in the desert with the cinder cone volcanoes, out along the Nimbus River Valley. I had wanted to go to this ride for years. Now I had a reason to go. So we drove 2 days from Houston, Texas, out to Nan Ranch across West Texas. And I get to the ranch road. The ranch road takes you across the Nimbus River, and the ranch is on the other side of the river. But what they don't tell you, you know, she's laughing, there is no bridge to go across the river. Next slide. This is what I'm looking at. There's the ranch road, there's the river, that's what you're going to go across. And some of you are looking at it and go, what's the big deal? I don't have a truck with four-wheel drive. I drive a Ford van that rides, this high off the ground. It has no four-wheel drive. It's got no traction in the tires. This thing gets stuck in the dew on my lawn. And I get to that and I said, well, I'm going to have to turn around and drive 2 days to go home. But the ranch lady, she comes out there and she says, I have been here for 20 years. Nobody has ever gotten stuck. And I'm thinking, yes. But she convinces me to go across this thing, and wouldn't you believe it, I made it across. That was my first memorable experience on that ride. Second memorable experience are the dust storms. Well, were you there?
Yeah, you and I were up on
Oh, that's right. Oh my God. There were 60-mile-an-hour winds, the dust beating us like a free dermabrasion, and the tumbleweeds going through the air, the tree limbs crashing, and this is all during the vet check on Friday, right? You were hit by one of those tree limbs. Yes. But it all cleared up for the ride itself. So we had great weather. The other memorable experience that I want to talk about is what happened at the very last PNR on Sunday. The judges were there. They wanted to have a final observation, and everybody was there. The PNR workers were there. The safety riders were there. The ride manager was there. The judges and all their entourage were there. The photographer was there. Everybody was there. And what they wanted us to do was to go back up through that gate, open and back through the gate, and shut it. Well, the other open riders were struggling with this. But Kaiser goes up there and boom, 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 boom. He gets it done. And every person there, all those people were on their feet, giving him a standing ovation. And it was very touching. You were there, remember that? It meant a lot to me. It did, for people to see him in action and see how well he did. And he wound up winning in sweepstakes this ride. However, it was not a full class, so we didn't get our 15 points, we got 12. That means that I have to go to another out-of-region ride. So, next slide. I had heard wonderful things about Kannapolis Canyons. It's an absolutely spectacular ride. And I always heard people tell me, well, you're a geologist, you're really gonna like it because it has wonderful rock formations and caves and things like that. So before I decided to go to the ride, I said, let me go online and let me look at some of the pictures, and the beautiful outcrops, beautiful geology, scenery, it was fantastic. But then I saw something that scared me so much that I said, I can't go to that ride. And it was something, it was a stream crossing, I think they call it beaver crossing. Because, well, that's sort of the picture, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a very tiny river, and then there's a beaver dam, and all the water is backed up behind that. And you have to cross the river in that deep section. And the picture they had on the internet was of a horse that was almost completely submerged. And I said, Kaiser hates water. He's never going to go through that. Oh my God, we can't do this. But I said, no, I want to do this ride so bad. I said, I have to train him to do this. So I said, okay, we're going to go to the 7IL where they have ponds. Now they're not as deep as that, but he will follow his buddy Jose anywhere. And he watched Jose went into the pond, and he's still alive, and he said, okay, I'm gonna go in. And he wasn't happy about it, but little by little, Amy and I, we worked on it, and we taught him to go into the water. Now, it wasn't as deep as Beaver Crossing, but I felt a lot more confident. I said, okay, I'm gonna enter the ride. And so we go up there to the ride, and we go to get to the Beaver Crossing, and what happened? Next slide. He goes in. He goes across it. There he is. I'm so proud of him there. And so he actually wound up winning and sweepstakes at this ride, and it was a full class. I think, what was it, like over 10 riders in the open lightweight. And so he gets his national championship at this ride, and it is May. I believe it was May.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and he has at that point won in sweepstakes 5 rides in a row. So I decided, okay, he's got his national championship. We have our goal for the year. I'm just gonna give him the summer off. We're gonna take an easy summer, and we're not gonna go anywhere. And my plan is that I'm just gonna go to the Region 4 rides in the fall. That's all I'm gonna do. So next slide. So the fall rides, Region 4 fall rides start in September. And we go to the first ride, the Fall Frolic. And I was really excited about going to this ride, but it wasn't starting out too well for me because just a couple of days before the ride, I hit my pinky toe on the coffee table and broke it. And, you know, how am I gonna post the trot for 2 days with that? But I take my toes together, I got in the van, I start heading towards the ride, and the van starts acting up. It makes noises, the check engine light comes on. I said, just get me to the ride. I get to the ride, and we're parked in a big field, no shade, and it is literally 100 degrees. Right, Fran? It was brutal. And of course, my generator won't start. I have no air conditioning. So I said, okay, there's no way anything else can go wrong. So I take my horse up to the vet and do the trot out, and the vet says to me, I see a little something in that right hind. And I'm like, oh no, what the heck? And he says, oh, don't worry about it, it's just questionable, but I just thought maybe you'd like to know. I said, well, yeah, I want to know, but now all I'm going to do is worry about him. And so I was obsessing over this. I talked about it nonstop to everybody. I was going out and lunging him every 5 minutes. Should I ride him? Should I not ride him? I was calling people over, come look at my horse. I was taking video of my horse and texting it to people who weren't even at the ride. And obsessing on it. And then it hit me what it was. I know what it is. It's his arthritis again. He was due for a joint injection and had worn off. And I just knew that's what it was, and I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and compete him because I think it's better for him to warm up and move with this. So we went ahead, and he was sound on the trail, but at the very end of the ride, he was a grade 1, and we lost points, and he was 3rd place, so that was the end of our winning streak. But I knew what was wrong with him. I immediately took him to my vet, and he agreed with me, yes, it's his hock. Let's just inject him with a steroid and he'll be fine, you know. So I got the horse fixed, I got the van fixed, I got the generator fixed. I was ready to go to the next ride. Next ride, the Wayfarer in the hill country of Texas. That's what the hill country of Texas looks like. Nothing but rocks and mountains. Tough, tough ride. This was such a tough ride that the ride manager told us, if you don't have a crupper on your saddle, you better get off and walk your horse downhill. They had yellow caution tape so we wouldn't fall off the side of the mountain. And but it was like he didn't care about any of this. He was up and down the mountains, nothing was bothering him. Saturday, he had a great day. He had lost no metabolic points, he lost no PNR points, he felt great. And we get into camp on Saturday, and the vet wants to check in for soundness, and wouldn't you know it, he is sore again on that right hind. I'm like, what the heck? He was injected. I don't know what happened. But I said, you know, we are not going to ride on Sunday on this trail again. So I pulled him. And I took him right to the vet. I said, what the heck happened? We injected him. And he said, well, we're going to have to inject him with something else. The steroid isn't working anymore. We're going to have to do like blood platelets into the joint. But we have to wait for the steroid to dissipate. And that's going to take 6 weeks. So, okay, that's the end of our fall ride season. That's the end of it right there. I said, thank God I got his national championship when I did. Because I just knew something's going to happen. So I thought, okay, that's the end of the ride season. There was one more ride left in our region in November. And as it turned out, he did get his injection the end of October. And the vet said, you know, I don't know if this is going to work or not. You know, but I needed to test it out. I needed, you know, he looked sound. He'd had also shockwave therapy done. So he looked sound, but was he going to hold up for a ride? And I said, well, I want to go to the ride, but I don't want the same thing to happen in Oklahoma as what happened at the Wayfarer, where he does one day, then he's sore, and I have to pull him. I said, no. But I want to test him out on a ride just to see if this worked. So I went to Oklahoma. Next slide. I went up to Oklahoma, the next ride, and we just made a compromise. I said, I'm going to do just the B ride, the 1 day open B ride. So he wound up sound. He was sound the whole weekend, and he was back in business again. So that made me feel really good that everything worked and he was going to be fine. So at the end of the year, let's go to the next slide. So 2022 had mostly good luck. We wound up actually completing getting points for 7.5 rides. He won sweepstakes on 6 of the rides. Oh, wait a minute, don't start the video yet. Not yet. Yeah, okay, I'll keep talking. So he won at sweepstakes 6 rides, with 4 of them being full classes, and I'll tell you when to start the video. And he got his 2,000 miles, which you just saw. He got his 2,000 miles here, and he earned his national championship. Plus, he won the President's Cup. And now you can start the video. feeling like number one.